Are you comfortable with a potential president attacking a federal judge for his heritage?
No. This is one of the worst mistakes Trump has made, and I think it's inexcusable. He has every right to criticize a judge. But first of all, this judge was born in Indiana. He is an American, period. When you come to America, you get to become an American. And Trump, who has grandparents who came to the U.S., should understand this as much as anybody.
In a time in which the economy just put together an anemic 38,000 jobs and you want to fix the economy, well, how does it benefit Donald Trump becoming president to talk about the ethnicity of a school that most of the country doesn't care about?
You know why? And you're right. Most people don't care about it, but it gets brought up by the other side. So when I respond, and then I talk about how bad the jobs picture is, how bad our country is doing, how badly we're doing economically, how people are out of work, how our real unemployment rate is through the roof, and people don't want to talk about it because that's a ridiculous number. The 5% is a ridiculous number. You understand that. I talk about all of this. The only thing they pick up is the fact that I'll say something about, the Trump University case.
Donald Trump. Joining me now, Newt Gingrich, who you heard just a moment ago, former Speaker of the House and a friend of this program. And I might add, just by the way, what is it, GingrichProductions.com to check your stuff out?
GingrichProductions.com, that's where we do our newest movie, The First American, about George Washington, and our newest book, which is Rediscovering God in America, a reissue, a really beautiful picture book about the role of God with all the founding fathers and all the great American leaders. So we stay pretty busy. And, of course, as you know, Callista does a series in which Ellis the Elephant teaches 4 to 8 year olds about American history, which is something we're very passionate about.
So Donald Trump said this morning on Fox and Friends he was surprised at Newt's comments and thought it was inappropriate what he said.
Yeah, look, I mean, Trump and I are both big boys, and we have the right to disagree on occasion. I have been very supportive of him. I am very supportive of him. I think he'd be gaining far more ground if he were focusing on the terrible jobs report from Friday. I mean, last month, the U.S. created one job for every 8,000 Americans. And that's almost an unimaginable number. And I think if you're a conservative or a Republican, that's a lot bigger winner than anything else I've seen recently, because you can go into Latino communities, Asian American communities, African American communities. You can go out and talk to millennials. An economy which is decaying at a rate where more and more people are dropping out of the economy. The unemployment number is a joke because it totally undercounts the number of people who no longer even try. That, to me, is where the Trump campaign ought to be centered, is on this whole issue of what are we going to do with an economy which Obama has destroyed and Clinton promises to continue destroying.
Donald Trump, look, I understand this Trump University case wasn't on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, but he's the litigant, and he has a right to speak up about the way things are going in court. Does he have in your view, a basis to object to this judge on the assumption, well, number one, the judge appointed a law firm that's a big Clinton, that donates a lot of money to the Clinton campaign and the Clinton Foundation. And secondly, just that Trump has been so tough on Mexico, Mexican trade deals, the border, the wall, all of that.
I want to draw distinctions. Yeah, I think he actually had Trump has a really good complaint about the judge and the law firm and the way the case has been rigged. And I think if he narrows it down to that, I mean, the fact that the judge belongs to one of the most radical La Raza groups in the country, the fact that the judge is, I think, in effect, colluding with a law firm which has given $900,000 to the Clintons. There's a whole range of places here, and if you look at the behavior, I mean, the initial plaintiff has been dropped from the case because it turned out that she, in fact, said really positive things about the course. Well, normally, if the plaintiff ends up having been in favor of the thing she's now filing against, you dismiss the whole case. So the fact that they let her get off because she would have been such a stunningly embarrassing witness for the defense, this tells you there's something wrong with how this has been run. The fact that the judge recently selectively released documents that were not supposed to be released. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for Trump to say, and for Trump's lawyers to say, they want a new judge. I think that's perfectly legitimate. I just don't think we want to get into a game where we describe people based on ethnicity. In the first place, this guy was born in Indiana, and I believe that when you come to America and you seek to be an American and you become an American, we ought to think of you as an American.
Okay, but I get your point that maybe Trump should never have brought up the ethnicity angle, and it's stuck with the La Raza organization and the business with the law firm and so forth. But we know from polling that Hispanics in this country, Mexican Americans born in America, in huge numbers disapprove of Donald Trump. If you're Trump,
Sure.
Why wouldn't you connect these?
Well, first of all, what we know about general numbers and about an individual it goes against our whole model of being an American. We don't judge you as part of a group. I mean, that would be to suggest that blacks can't get a fair white judge, whites can't get a fair black judge, Asians can't get a fair judge unless they're Asian. And by the way, Asian means if you're Chinese, it has to be a Chinese judge, because Vietnamese, while they're Asian, aren't Chinese. I mean, once you go down that road, you destroy America. You can't take a group definition and apply it. If there are things this judge has done that are wrong, and I think there are, you can pound him into the ground as a judge who did the following things. But that's taking on an individual. It's not taking on an entire ethnic group.
Well, okay, but in objecting to the judge's membership or former membership or association with a La Raza legal organization, you kind of tip your hand, don't you?
No, because that's a specific group that has a very radical agenda, and where it's legitimate to say that this judge has exhibited bias, because in the case he has exhibited bias. Remember, the initial Trump complaint isn't about the judge, it's about the judge in the case. And I think it's fair to say that this judge has handled this case in a very biased way. So that part, I've got no complaint about Trump making the argument that the game is rigged and that the judge and the law firm are both stacked against him. But I would just make it a personal argument about that person who's a judge. I wouldn't go off on ethnicity, because that involves millions and millions of people, by the way, a number of whom are conservative. I think in the last poll, Trump is doing about as well as Mitt Romney did among Latinos. So, every fourth Latino is for Romney. It's for Trump.
So let's look back. Donald Trump has said things starting in July when he announced his candidacy that have created these kind of little nuclear explosions fairly routinely. Do you think this one, like the other ones, will recede into the background, or do you think this is special?
I think this will recede for a practical reason. Trump has shown an enormous ability to learn. He's come from being a businessman who had never run for office to beating 16 very, very good candidates, many of whom we would have thought of as first rate in a normal year. And now he's coping with becoming one of the two people who could potentially lead the United States and the free world. These are huge jumps, and it takes a little while. I was talking with Craig Shirley, who's the great biographer of Ronald Reagan's campaigns, and Shirley pointed out that Reagan had a terrible August in 1980. I mean, things just weren't working at all. They had to actually sort of stop the campaign, have a summit meeting of the senior staff, sort out what they were doing, and restart around Labor Day. Nobody in August, and I was part of this, I was actively running for re-election in Georgia. I mean, we were all very concerned about what was happening with Reagan. And then he got his act together, and in September and October, and he beat Jimmy Carter, the largest electoral vote defeat of any incumbent president in American history. But in August, you wouldn't have known that. So Trump's going through growing pains, and he's going to I'm sure he'll go through more growing pains. Nobody, no matter how smart you are, nobody can jump that far into a very different league without having some challenges.
Speaker Gingrich, it's always great to talk to you, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. We'd like to talk to you again as this progresses, especially when you become the running mate. Hint, hint.
Good. Thanks.
Speaker Newt Gingrich, check him out at gingrichproductions.com.